touch because I do all three of those subjects. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, we're starting with the Treaty of Versailles. I tell you what, my goodness. You know, did I hear Bismarck? Did I hear Bismarck? All right, Mr. Goods here. Shout out. All right, so we've got here. Let's see. Okay, let me just run and look at something real quick. Let's see. All right, I got something. I'm up to something. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I think somebody said Bismarck. All right, y'all know what I'm thinking. A little blood and iron to start off the morning. All right, now y'all let me know if y'all don't want to hear me rap, then you know, no big deal. Y'all don't want to hear me rap, but y'all let me know if you want to hear some rapping or not this morning. It's really, I could go either way. So let's see, SoundCloud. Let's remember all this stuff's on my SoundCloud. So I'm just going to run over here and let me see where I've got the, yeah, if y'all want to hear it, I mean, if y'all don't want to hear it, if it's too early for rapping, I know some people, like, they just don't want to do this kind of stuff before noon. So y'all just let me know in the chat what y'all are thinking. Okay, so all right, okay. So as far as that goes, I think that, okay, it sounds like I'm not a rapper, but, you know, I can rap here and there. Okay. So with this, let me go ahead and get this ready. All right. So if y'all want to hear it, I mean, I don't want to let y'all down. But again, I mean, if y'all don't want to hear any rapping this morning, y'all just let me know. I won't rap a bit. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, sounds like y'all are ready to hear it. Now, remember, Otto von Bismarck, German unification. At first, it was a process that was based on liberal nationalism. Okay, so when you think about this, the Frankfurt Parliament that met in 1848, you know, they wanted to come up with a constitution. All right, so they wanted to come up with a constitution for a united Germany, and of course, they offered the crown as a constitutional monarch to the King of Prussia. The King of Prussia is like, I don't want your pig crown. All right, and so he tells him, like, literally, he's just like, I don't want your pig crown. I don't want a crown that I got to pick up from the gutter. I want a divine right crown. You know, I want a real one. And so, you know, as far as that goes, the Frankfurt Parliament doesn't work. And so the idea to unify Germany on the principles of liberal nationalism through legislation and through a constitution, that wasn't going to work. And of course, that's something that German and Italian unification kind of have in common. This idea that, you know, this 1848 kind of like, let's unify this on some sort of liberal or idealistic nationalism or something like that. It's like, no. And so whether you've got like Bismarck in Germany or Cavour in Italy, this process after 1848 is becoming much more pragmatic. And that's where Bismarck says, you know, Bismarck's like, look, you know, that it is not, you know, basically that, you know, Prussia is not going to be united based on its liberalism. Actually, you know what? It's so much easier when you put it in a rap because I'm pretty much true to what he said, but I put it in verse form. So it's like, you know, the position in Prussia, the position of Prussia in Germany at this hour will not be determined by its liberalism, but its power. Great questions aren't decided by speeches and majorities. It's blood and iron. I'll use war to spread authority. Okay. And so the thing is, that's not 100% literally what he said, but it's like 80% what he said. Okay. So as far as that goes, sometimes it's like when you put something in a verse, it's something that you're going to remember a little bit better. Going to get my guitar in case you want to hear about the Napoleon song later. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into Bismarck. And remember how Bismarck kind of aligned himself selectively, you know, with the liberals or the, you know, or the conservatives or whoever he was going to align himself with. He might even throw the socialist bone there with his limited welfare state, with old age pensions, accident insurance, and and health insurance. So with that, with no further ado, let's go ahead and, you know, and hear it. All right. So Warm Water Records, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, y'all can find this on my SoundCloud. All right, here we go. I'm the Iron Chancellor, and I feel an obligation. Unify the German states under Prussian domination. A conservative in heart, but I got a little trick. It's the politics of power. Call it realpolitik. An alliance with the liberals because I'm industry emphatic and they're secular. They like my culture comp against the Catholics. They and the Social Democrats because I'm gonna put it bluntly that Germany will never be a socialist country. I've got old age pensions and some accident insurance. If you're hurt at work, I've got your back. You've got my reassurance. Call it state socialism. Now the liberals want to hate, but without the working classes, we can't unify the state. The position of Prussia in Germany at this hour will not be determined by its liberalism, but its power. Great questions aren't decided by speeches or majorities. It's blood and iron. I'll use war to spread authority with the Austrians as allies. We took Schleswig and Holstein, then declared war on Austria. The next step in my grand design. Prussia won in 7 weeks. Austria wasn't any match. Then it's time to provoke France with the M's dispatch. Large army armed with telegraphs and trains. France decisively defeated, gave up Alsace and Lorraine. After unifying Germany, then I really had some clout. Now it's 1890 and I'm out. All right, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, always nice to start off with a little warm water rap, right? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, now most of y'all are probably already following me on Instagram and all of that, but if you're not, I'll be doing some shout outs. So y'all go ahead and, y'all go ahead and oh gosh, if anybody's watching from Mr. Sommer's class, wishing him a happy recovery. I tell you what, I like that guy up in New York teaching AP Euro. So if anybody's, part of Mr. Sommer's crew, make sure to wish him well for me. All right, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, a shout out to Karthik's class. Leon is trying really hard for that. Is that the same Leon over there? Oh, Leon, I tell you what, you're over on Instagram showing that love, okay? Grafton, Massachusetts, tennis. Oh, man, I tell you what, Leon is playing some tennis over there. Y'all got to check that, man. That is some tennis. I'm just going to put that on my story. Sometimes I play tennis, he says. All right, so we're going to go ahead and, with Karthik's class out there, I tell you what, Leon, I hope you make a 5 today, buddy. All right, so with that, that's how to get noticed. That's how to get noticed, okay? So we've got Gelia, we've got, Anjana Pramod and Kalia and Z Cook 726, Ben Lugo 7, Charlotte C.H., Skylar Hollis. Now, y'all also remember Bella Rojas. I hope you are also following my friends at Marco Learning. Okay, so remember that I provide support for AP Euro, AP US History, and AP US Government. Marco Learning provides support for like a ton of subjects, like over a dozen subjects. And let me make sure, and this is stuff that's like, that's going to be totally like free for you. Now, of course, a lot of y'all, bought your Romulus Euro app already. It's at the App Store and on Google Play. So that app, it's just a simple little trivia app. Number 5 in education. Y'all got us up to the top 10. All right. And it's just a simple little trivia app, $2.99. It's just, I think it's a great app, but POV me. Now that's, a $2.99 investment, just, some nice little trivia, for kind of last minute kind of stuff here. But the thing is that Marco Learning has so much stuff on their website. If you go to Marco Learning /AP Euro, okay, so I'm just going to run in the chat real quick and make sure I put that link, that it's got some really helpful study guides that are free downloads here. And so let me just make sure that y'all are seeing and I had a hand in making these handouts here. Now, these are mostly for the early units, like units 1 and 2. So these are topic-specific study guides. So, for example, where you've got Petrarch here in the Italian Renaissance. Okay, this is something that is a free download, very helpful to you in your last-minute preparation. And so that is at marcolearning.com/AP Euro. Now, also, if you go to marcolearning.com, it may be a little bit late to take a practice exam, but make sure that you understand that they've got practice exams not only for for this subject, but also for other subjects. Okay, so practice tests and study guides. Now, let me just make sure for those of you who haven't seen these already, I mean, this is a free download that you go over here, study guide pack. You just download that sucker and it's got something. Now it's about, I think, like a 2-pager for every unit. Okay, so for all 9 units, there is a 2-pager. And so this is something that I think is going to be super helpful for y'all. It's a free download. And remember that marcolearning provides support for, over a dozen subjects. So, I mean, it's just, it's a great friend for you, as you're going through, AP, your AP. I mean, there's Marco, there's your best friend right there. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's just something that I'm just sharing with you, because I want to make sure that you're getting things that are helpful, on this. So with that, we've got the Catholic Reformation. Now, in these guides, these topical guides, I want to make sure that we direct what we've got here is you've got kind of like some overview. When did it happen? Some key terms here. Anathema. All right. The index of prohibited books, continuity and change. Okay. So one thing we want to know about the Catholic Reformation or the Counter Reformation. Now, one thing is that we want to note that, when you call it the Catholic Reformation or the Counter Reformation, you're talking about the same thing, but there's kind of a nuance here, okay? Because when we think about like the Counter Reformation, okay, the Counter Reformation means that the Catholic Church is pushing back, countering Protestantism against the Reformation, okay? And that's where we see at the Council of Trent the affirmation of Catholic doctrine. Now, this is my jingle. Affirmation of Catholic doctrine, reformation of church practice. So when we think about the Counter-Reformation, the Council of Trent, they affirmed every bit of Catholic doctrine. They affirmed the primacy of the Pope. They affirmed, the importance of church tradition, which should be looked at, along with the scriptures, okay? That the scriptures should be interpreted through the lens of church tradition, also upheld the teaching authority of the Pope and the bishops. They said anathema, okay? Basically, let them burn if they're not with us on this, okay? And so the affirmation of Catholic doctrine, the Council of Trent says our doctrines are not the problem. So remember that the Catholic Church, like the Council of Trent, they made it very clear that, Catholics do not believe that people are saved through their good works. Catholics believe that because people have free will, then, it is their job to cooperate in their salvation, okay? That good works confirm salvation through Jesus Christ. So the Catholics, now the Protestants misrepresent that, during the Reformation. I think, some Protestants misrepresent that even now presently. But as far as that goes, that is one big difference between Catholics and Protestants, is that Catholics believe that, salvation, should be confirmed with good works through your free will. Whereas Protestants believe that salvation has nothing to do with works, okay? That basically Luther and Erasmus got into it. Now, that's one thing as we look at, and again, kind of putting these things in conversation with each other. If we go to the Northern Renaissance and look at Erasmus, the Northern Renaissance are what we call Christian humanism, okay? And so Erasmus and Thomas More represent this trend of Christian humanism. And Erasmus's book here, The Praise of Folly, which would make a great specific example in a DBQ or an SAQ, having to do with the Northern Renaissance or humanism, or the Renaissance in particular, that Erasmus in The Praise of Folly, he's using the Gospels to critique the church. So he's using the Gospels, which are a classical text, okay? The Gospels are a classical text. And so as far as that goes, that he looks at the Gospels and he says, look, the apostles are poor. And so, but then he looks at the Catholic bishops of the time and he says they're wealthy. If they want to be like the apostles, maybe they should try being poor. Okay. And so he's using a classical text to critique the church. But here's the thing, though. When you look at the Catholic Reformation or Counter Reformation, whatever we're going to call it, that I think your AP Euro prefers Catholic Reformation, but the Council of Trent note the affirmation of Catholic doctrine, but the reformation of church practices. Okay. The difference between Erasmus and Martin Luther is that Erasmus criticized church practices, but Erasmus never criticized Catholic doctrine. And that is something very important, because Luther, he criticizes church practices such as the sale of indulgences, but he also criticizes Catholic doctrines and even the authority of the Pope to forgive sins in the first place. So what we see here is that, they are listening to Erasmus and to a certain extent Luther, that there is a reformation of church practices. So when we say Catholic Reformation, we're talking about an internal reformation in the Catholic Church, creating new religious orders, establishing seminaries to train and educate priests, and banning the sale of indulgences. Now, the sale of indulgences, not saying that the Pope can't issue an indulgence for a reason other than selling it, but no more sales. Okay, so they're combating corruption, make sure that priests are educated, creating new religious orders. So affirmation of Catholic doctrine, reformation of church practice. So note here that when we look at something like this, we're looking at continuity and change here in the Catholic Reformation. Here we're looking at comparison. So when we're thinking about the Italian Renaissance and the Northern Renaissance, now they are similar in that they both study the classics. Now remember, humanism in the context of the Renaissance has to be embedded. It's not just the idea of human-centered thinking and a growing secularism, but also, it is delving into classical text. Okay, so whether you're Erasmus or Machiavelli, you are studying the classics, Greek, Roman, and biblical literature, and modeling their writings after classical authors. Now, the Italian Renaissance and the Northern Renaissance are different in that Northern Renaissance humanists were more religious and focused more on social reform, while Italian humanists were more focused on secular concerns and individual achievement. Now, where can I find evidence to support that claim? Okay, so when I'm thinking about evidence to support that claim, I'm going to look here. So this is a claim. It needs specific evidence to support it. Well, I'm going to look at Machiavelli. Okay, so I'm going to look at Machiavelli. And so when I look at him, I see that, that stuff doesn't seem very Christian. It's like, Jesus said, love God, love your neighbor as yourself. And then so with that, though, Machiavelli's like, it's better to be feared than loved. Okay, so Machiavelli is not looking at the teachings of Jesus Christ in order to try to, give advice to a ruler on how to rule. Machiavelli's looking at how did the most effective Roman emperors govern? And that's how you should govern and hold power. Whereas Erasmus, Erasmus is looking at the Gospels, and he's saying that we need to reform society, based on what we see in the Scriptures. Okay, so he's looking at a classical text, not in order to try to gain power, but in order to try to reform society. Now, Thomas More in Utopia. Utopia is, of course, now this is where, it's based on a classical text. That this is based on the writings of Plato. Plato was popularized, the Greek philosopher Plato, as we can see in Raphael's, famous painting, The School of Athens. Okay, so we've got here, Plato and Aristotle here in the middle. Now, of course, Plato modeled after Leonardo da Vinci. It's kind of a nod to, one of Raphael's, biggest competitors at the time. Okay, some very friendly competition here. So that's something that is, that is an important thing to, to note here. And so from there, now also we'll note how Italian Renaissance art and Northern Renaissance art, that they are both striving for a sort of realism, But we notice here that Raphael in the School of Athens, he's painting this grand scene with philosophers, where, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Diogenes, Zoroaster, all of these people here. Whereas when you look at the Northern Renaissance, that this is something that's more like, let me paint an everyday scene. Okay, so the Northern Renaissance, and there is more of a focus on kind of an everyday life and more of a realistic depiction that is not an idealized realism. Okay, I would say that in Renaissance art, they're both realism, but Renaissance art kind of has an idealized realism about it. And then we have then Northern Renaissance art, which is Northern Renaissance art, which is just more of an everyday kind of realism. Now, part of that is who is getting these, who is purchasing these paintings. So with that, now this handout, I have not got this online yet, and I need to. I know I'm just kind of a one-man show. I know I'm just kind of a one-man show. Okay, so one of these days I want to get all of these things that I've got as far as notes and things like that on my website. It's going to happen one day. Okay, so but with that, we'll see. It's going to happen one day, God willing. But going from there, let's see what we've got. What we've got here. So I was looking at Italian Renaissance art. Why were these works of art created here? And so with this, when we look at the Adoration of the Magi, Botticelli's Adoration of the Magi, it's like, okay, and this is a great piece of specific evidence. It's not about knowing the artist and the work of art, but how we can use it in order to argue a point or to support a claim. And so what we see here is the Holy Family. We see the Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, the Christ child, baby Jesus there. And, that is not, I tell you, somebody should put like Ricky Bobby, like anybody ever seen Talladega Nights? Ricky Bobby's like, dear Lord, baby Jesus. Anybody, y'all tell me in the chat. I hope I'm not the only one thinking about that, but somebody put like Ricky Bobby there. He's always praying to dear Lord, baby Jesus. Now, who is this? It's not Ricky Bobby. It's Cosimo de' Medici. Okay, so this here is Cosimo de' Medici, the patriarch of the Medici family, who by that time had been dead for a while. But Lorenzo de' Medici, the current patriarch of the Medici family at the time Botticelli's painting, he is here. So we see here that Cosimo de' Medici has the position of primacy here, that this is something that it's got the Holy Family, but it's also got, members of the Medici family here, and it's basically bolstering their image. Now, again, I will say I've got so much respect for Lorenzo. Okay, this is one of those things that Lorenzo, when Pico della Mirandola visited him on his deathbed, Lorenzo died at about like 40 or 42. I mean, he died pretty early by our standards today. But Lorenzo was on his deathbed, and he tells Pico della Mirandola, the philosopher who, famous for the Oration on the Dignity of Man. He said, I wish I could live a little bit longer so that I could help you finish your library. They had like dinners to celebrate Plato's birthday. I mean, Lorenzo was a true believer, but in the principles of humanism and a true lover of the classics and the arts. In fact, the Medici family, their fortunes kind of suffered under Lorenzo because he was so focused on promoting the, patronizing. Remember, he's a patron of artists and philosophers. So Lorenzo is so focused on, being a patron of the arts and a patron of philosophy that he wasn't focused quite as much on the bank. And so with that, there's Botticelli there, the artist painting this. So we want to note here that you've got there are reasons these works of art are being commissioned, okay? And so with this, like this one here, the delivery of the keys. This is Perugino's delivery of the keys. Now, this is in the Sistine Chapel. This is not one of the, this is not one of the paintings on the ceiling. Michelangelo didn't do it, but it's on the wall. And so we see here that Jesus is giving the keys to St. Peter. And this comes from a passage in the gospel, that Peter, confesses his faith in Jesus. And Jesus says, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not overcome it. What you shall bind on earth, I will bind in heaven. What you shall loose on earth, I shall loose in heaven." Peter, you are my God, okay, is what he's saying here, which this is the Pope's claim, because traditionally Peter became the first bishop of Rome. And so with this is the Pope's claim to be a successor of Peter. So why was this painted? This was painted so that when people see this, they see Jesus giving the keys to Peter. And we know that when we look up the Vatican, for example, ladies and gentlemen, so if we go to, remember, marcolearning.com, free study guides, okay? That is a great investment. You don't get a better investment than free, okay? And so with that, we were looking at, the Vatican, okay? So we look at the Vatican, for example, if we're going to see Vatican City, and it'll show us the coat of arms, okay? You see the keys, all right? The keys are a very important image to bolster the power of the Pope. So understanding that people had agendas, okay? David, for example, Michelangelo's David, David was a symbol for the city of Florence. And so, because remember, Florence had not been in the Middle Ages. Venice and Genoa controlled everything, okay? So Venice and Genoa controlled all of the trade. And so with that, that when we think about, Florence is a rising city at the time. And that, of course, I get into in this handout on the Italian Renaissance. I keep trying to find out which one. I got so much goodness here. I'm having to sort through it, okay? And so with this, we note that Florence, which is a city that had been overshadowed by Venice during the Middle Ages, that basically Florence becomes a prominent city. David was a symbol of Florence because Florence is that city-state that is not as prominent. Now, also, David is looking toward Rome as a warning. So basically, Goliath is Rome, and David is looking, toward Rome. And so this is something that it is a biblical figure sculpted in the classical style, but also with a propagandistic purpose, okay? And so that's something to note. But notice another thing, like where, Michelangelo with the Pietà, where the Virgin Mary is holding her son, after he was crucified, and this Pietà, pity. Okay, we see a mother here that is, she's holding her son, which of course in this sculpture, which this is odd for Renaissance sculpture, because Michelangelo decided to make the Virgin Mary larger. Okay, which is really kind of goes against Renaissance conventions, but he wanted the focus to be on her. It's the Pietà, it's on her pity, and she's holding her son like a child. And one thing that Michelangelo did, he was still kind of young when he did this, and he was proud of it. Remember, the pride of the artist. This is one of those things. Castiglione, in the Book of the Courtier, he said it's okay to brag if you got something to brag about. And so, which y'all will notice, speaking, of probably about time for me to do some more Instagram shout outs. But when we think about this, like on Instagram, the posts you have that get you the most likes, these are typically posts that you're bragging about something like, hey, I got into this college, or, I graduated, or I did something here, I achieved something. And people tend to like those posts because you're not bragging about nothing. You are actually like saying, if you don't promote yourself, who's going to promote you, And so with that, sfry05, thank you so much. And chopstick tape _ on either side. And we've got, Catharic Tennis. I play tennis too. All right. I'll take your word for that. Banana Fish 19 and Suji, let's see, Akarafi, and Katia period G. All right. And we've got so as far as that goes here, Sabri Bree 30, Amanda D Robes. Okay. And so thank y'all. Now also make sure y'all are following, as far as that goes, Make sure you're following Marco Learning as well. They've got great memes, okay? Like, they are going to have some great memes after the exams are over. So I'm going to tell you, like, Marco Learning, it's another great Instagram follow while y'all are at it. So with that, though, Michelangelo, okay, he wanted to brag about his work because somebody's like, who made that? And Michelangelo came in after hours, after everybody left. And when you look very closely, like across the Virgin Mary's, chest, it says Michelangelo Buonarroti, a Florentine, made this. Okay. And of course, he's got it in Latin, Michelangelus Buonarrotis, faciebat, Florentinus faciebat. And so he says here, not only Michelangelo did this, but Michelangelo, a Florentine, did this. Okay. So he is proudly, repping his city-state of Florence. And that is so important there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, just keep in mind that we've got those specific guides, Romulus Euro. I tell you what, y'all got it up to number 5. Even with everybody not taking the exam on the same day, I just want to let y'all know how thankful I am that y'all are, helping me out with that. I think that's, and also helping yourselves out, right? Because I think it's a mutually beneficial exchange. For $2.99, it's a nice little trivia app. But make sure, remember, we've got these, unit review guides here. Now, another thing that I want to address is, what is capitalism? Okay, because when we're looking at something like this, what is capitalism? And capitalism, Americans always associate capitalism with laissez-faire. But the thing is, laissez-faire capitalism is a particular type of capitalism. So when we're talking about capitalism, now remember that the term itself began as a pejorative term made up by socialists. I believe Louis Blanc, who was a French socialist, was the first person to use the term capitalism, okay? And then during the Cold War, Americans started wearing it like a badge of honor. It's like, yeah, capitalism, okay? But, Americans tend to look at capitalism like it has to be like laissez-faire, free market capitalism. But capitalism can be regulated, okay? So when we look at the guide on the age of exploration, okay, so when we're looking here at the age of exploration, you can see here where I go into mercantilism. Now, mercantilism, it is an economy based on money, and the exchange of money and private ownership. Okay, so private ownership of the means of production. There's a money economy where basically what we're seeing here with the Medici family having a bank, that one thing about the modern world is how much money you have available, how much capital you have available is more important than how much land you own. Okay, so with that, how much capital you have available is more important than how much land you own. Okay, and that is part of a capitalist economy. Note that mercantilism, which we see, during the age of exploration and the age of absolutism, this is the regulation of trade. Okay, so we see here that mercantilism, which says that national wealth is measured in precious metals. Okay, and so basically, as far as that goes, that when we're looking at this, since it's measured in precious metals, then the objective is, if you want to accumulate national wealth, then you will accumulate gold and silver. And so colonial empires basically are established that have insulated economies. They're trying to avoid trading with foreign countries so that they can keep their supply of gold and silver. They don't want to import things, because when you import, you pay out in your gold and silver, and then you get stuff that, by the definition of mercantilism, is just going to disappear. Now, Adam Smith comes along with economic liberalism, which is another approach to capitalism, where he says, look, hey, y'all see my hands? Now you don't. Now you see them, now you don't. Mercantilism, laissez-faire. Mercantilism, laissez-faire, okay? So as far as that goes, Adam Smith Adam Smith is saying, like, look, mercantilism, y'all are trying to regulate stuff, stop that, okay? And so with that, you want to make sure that when you're thinking about that, it's like, stop, my hand just went visible. Okay, so Adam Smith says, look, the economy doesn't need to be regulated. Remember, the Enlightenment is about freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and also economic freedom. Okay, I'm trying so hard not to show my hands on camera while I'm talking about Adam Smith, because Adam Smith says you don't have to regulate the economy, that wealth is measured based on trade and output, not on gold and silver. And so that's why economic liberals, they favor free trade and low regulation, low taxes, so that they can get the economy going. Now, remember that when we think about this, that when we're looking at this, that we need to think about, we have to separate ourselves from American definitions of liberalism, which basically liberalism in America, what does that even mean? I mean, it's a word that's really kind of lost its meaning in a lot of ways. Oh my goodness. I just got I have no idea how much 2,000 yen is. Somebody look that up. Oh my Lord. I have never gotten a super chat paid in yen. From Tokyo, JS, how much is 2,000 yen? How much is 2,000 yen? I might be able to stop this broadcast, because I just got so much. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much. Now, I'm not going to stop the broadcast, but that was very generous of you. I appreciate it. That is best of luck to y'all. Thank y'all so much over there in Tokyo, Japan. Then we've got Jamie. Thank you so much, Jamie, for this. I appreciate your support as well. Thank you for the super chat. And so Bo Book Bike, thank you again for the super chat. Now, if I don't see a super chat, I mean no disrespect at all, okay? But when I see super chats, I'll make sure to, that those are shouted out, okay? I'll make sure super chats are shouted out. If you've got a question, now remember, the more you give, the longer your super chat stays there. So if I see a super chat, I'll note it. If you've got a question, I'll make sure to give that some attention, okay? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all so much for your support on that. I know that, that's quite an honor to get super chats, those of you watching on YouTube. So as far as that goes, which I did an SAQ clinic last night, okay? And the thing is that, if you get an SAQ, it's like new exam format, the ACQ. I need to make a video like how to do the ACQ, okay? And just make up a totally like bogus version of the exam. Wouldn't that be, it's just like how to do the ACQ. Peter the Great, Russian Tsar might have heard of me. Warm Water Port, yeah, that's what I want to see. European tour going west, want to come with me? I'd rather die than having to run me. Shave that beard, show me them lips. Better grab a hammer because I'm building ships. Selling that Azov for the campaign. Turks couldn't hold the place after I came. I got a warm water port, ruling absolutely. Wear French fashions in my court, ruling absolutely. That's me in that book you're reading, ruling absolutely. Defeating Charles the 12th of Sweden, ruling absolutely. All right, so maybe I'll do a little bit of that, a little more of that later. But I saw Peter the Great. I just had to get into that WAP thing there. Now the thing is, if I get an SAQ about Peter the Great, I'm gonna do fine, because I've got, I know stuff. But here's the thing: that if you don't know the material, you're not going to be able to do it. Now, I would say get creative. Okay, I would say get creative, and that is something that it's like, don't just give up and not answer, but get creative. Is there any way you can answer the question? Okay, because you either don't get the point or you do. And remember that as long as you're getting about half the SAQs right, as long as you're getting credit for about half of them, then you're going to be fine. Okay, that's something that you want to make sure to note as well, that if you get about half, you're going to do fine. 2 out of 3 points for each one, you are heading toward a 4, maybe even a 5. Okay, so the thing is that with that, if you don't remember the information, you're gonna have a hard time. Okay, so that's something to note, but you've still got a couple hours to cram. Okay, so get your marcolearning study guides and go at it. So the other thing, but remember to be very just to make note. And also, sometimes you may not know what the question is, actually asking. Okay, so that's another thing, thinking about what is the question actually asking. So that's something that you always want to, that you always want to think about there. And so going from there, ladies and gentlemen, as far as as far as an SAQ, remember, it's really all about how you answer it, and make sure that, I always say here that, let me actually put something up here as far as that goes, because I want y'all to see, some things that might, that might work here. Okay, so I did a clinic last night where we went over some of these things here, but let me just go ahead and put my camera on, and with that, let me just note here, that when you're going into SAQs, it's like one of them's going to be a map. Now, there are three like novel kind of things here. One of them's going to be a map. One of them's going to be a print primary source, and one of them's going to be data. Okay, and so as far as that goes, the spread of industrialization in Europe. Now, when the question asks, describe one cause that contributed to the geographical distribution of industrialization prior to 1850, and you're like, well, I'll look at the map, 1850, it's just Britain, okay? So what I have to ask is, what the question's really asking is, describe one thing that basically was responsible for the Industrial Revolution in Britain. And with that, if I don't know anything about the Industrial Revolution at all, there's no way I'm going to get this right, okay? But with that, now the way that I've got these here, so just to let y'all know, and again, the SAQ clinic is, available on my website, but it's probably kind of late for y'all to watch that now, which is why I'm going to give y'all a little bit of it here, because I want y'all to understand how to set up an SAQ, okay? And so with that when we're looking at this, the blue is, I would say that what's in blue would be by itself insufficient. The purple, okay, which purple, that's the color of royalty. So that's a color of of getting credit and that sort of thing. So with that, purple's a great color. And so with that, coal would be used to power steam. So note here, blue by itself would be insufficient. Going into the purple is what I think would be sufficient for credit. Now, the gold is the finesse, putting in a little extra to make the reader's job easy, okay? So with this, when it says describe one cause, okay, so I've got to describe it. So one cause that contributed to industrialization in Britain was its supply of natural resources such as coal. Now here I've identified, but I haven't described it. So I'm going to say here, coal would be used to power steam engines such as the engine developed by James Watt. I've got something specific. I think I'm good there, but you know what? When I think I'm good, I'm going to put one more sentence. Britain also had a lot of rivers, which could be used as a power source for mills that were located alongside rivers, okay? So that's something there that this would be a way, or I could say here, one cause that contributed to the industrialization of Britain was that its political system was favorable to industrialization. Britain had its revolution in the 1600s, so Parliament became a stable institution, which encouraged investment because taxes were predictable and fair. Now, I want to keep going. Also, British nobility were not discouraged from investing in business enterprises like French nobles were. Now, with this, we want to note that, if you don't know it, you can't answer it, okay? But you can be creative. So there are some things like, you might look now, you'll see some SAQs where you're like, what is the third estate? There we go. And then here, where we see that, the agricultural revolution, okay? You look at this and you're like, oh my goodness, what is this? And so, you may not have an answer, but you can be creative. Now, this one here, explain how a specific historical development not having to do with food production led to population growth in Europe during the period 1700 to 1800. Now, you may not have an answer, but I've got two prospective answers here. One of them being that there were no more plagues. Okay, so we see that population is growing. Like when we think about the reasons for the population explosion in the 18th century. Now, part of the reason is because food production is getting more efficient because of the British agricultural revolution. Another one is that the plague is just kind of, there are no more plagues in Europe. Like the Black Death, happened in the 1300s, but then there were recurrences of plague. all the way through the late 17th century. So after 1700, Europe is finally, for whatever reason, plague free. And so with this, that we see here there were no more plagues between the Black Death, so you may know not that, you may not. So on one hand we could say that we've got the the food supply, then no more plague. And this was actually something one of the participants last night suggested. One thing that led to population growth in the 1700s, other than the food supply, was the advanced medical discoveries of the scientific revolution. I'm going to bring in a specific example of William Harvey. Then I'm going to finesse that sucker and go into the Galen's humoral theory of disease. Now remember, what I've got in gold here, most of these can be answered just fine in 2 sentences. Some of them can be answered in 1 sentence. Basically, look at short answer questions as specific answer questions, okay? So as far as that goes, specific answer questions, not short answer questions, specific answer questions, okay? So that is something that is very, very important here. Look at this as a specific answer question, not a short answer question, because short to the College Board just means that it's not a, it's not an essay, is all they're saying there. Okay, so as far as that goes, let's see who's showing me some love on Instagram. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and see what we've got here. Okay, so we've got Matha D also plays tennis. Olivia 9435. Remember, specific answer questions. Okay, so when Chloe Boat is taking her exam, she's going to think specific answer questions. Kimberly Adele, specific answer questions. Remember, how specific, Richie? How specific can you get? Okay, how specific can you get? And that is what is important here, okay? So how specific can you get? So we've got here, great. So all kinds of stuff here. Nalia, hopefully you do very well in your exam. Gons 789 AI showing some love for Harambe. Now remember, Harambe Movie, this is one of my favorite Instagram accounts. They're actually making a movie about Harambe. Show them some love. Show them some love there. And yeah, I tell you, they followed me back because they were like, yeah, so show them some love. This is a great account on Instagram, Harambe Movie. They actually got like pictures posted of Harambe that have never before been released. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm just going to do this real quick because it's for Harambe. And if y'all, if y'all start hating on Harambe, like, I hope your exam goes well, because that's not going to be good for you, okay? But I'm going to let you know, like, next Friday is going to be the 5th anniversary of Harambe's death. And actually, like, the guys at Harambe Movie, they got me, like, I've got like these like actual like photos of Harambe that I'm going to be like auctioning off to support the movie, like, because it's basically, it's not just a biopic about Harambe, it's going into like how zoo animals are treated and stuff like that. So y'all stay tuned. Like, y'all are going to see something on the channel next Friday night. I'm going to be doing a charity fundraiser to raise money for this documentary. So y'all stay tuned on that. But at Harambe Movie, it's just, I would show Harambe some love. It's just a good karma kind of gesture. Okay. So with that, since I did SAQs, okay, now one thing here, demoral, the 100 Years War, I've got 30 Years War, 100 Years War, 7 Years War. So let's go into that. 100 Years War, you don't have to worry about. It's pre-1450, okay? So that's something that a lot of times we go into the 100 Years War, like, at the beginning of the course, but it's pre-1450. Unless it's Petrarch, nothing pre-1450 is going to be assessed. So that's something you don't have to study, the 100 Years War. The 30 Years War, I would refer you to my lecture on that, okay? Because the 30 Years War is such an important topic that it needs to be understood, okay? So with that, I will refer you to my lecture on that. That's something that, I'm going to just refer you to that if you're shaky on the 30 Years War. That I would just look at the lecture. I'll probably, wrap up this broadcast about 11:30, so that'll give you some time to like look at like a specific topic lecture or something like that. I would recommend one of those. Now, 7 Years War. All you really have to know about the 7 Years' War is about Louis the 14th was the Sun King. Now, with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead. I'll do another part. Y'all want to hear which king was the Sun King? I need to remind you. I said certified king. Look at all this bling. Absolutely, nobles kissing my ring. Woo! Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I'm ruling France, so absolutely. Got no time for Huguenots. Ruling absolutely. All this sovereignty I got. Ruling absolutely. In the Fronde, nobles tried to charge. Shut them down. It wasn't hard. At Versailles, built a new place. I run up debts like a credit card. Take a tour. Come on inside. The Hall of Mirrors. It's tall and wide. Nobles flock by my bedside. Asking favors I won't provide. Protestants, y'all better hide. Toleration is denied. I want all the Huguenots to disappear like some sort of mirage. Did ballet, legs so lean. I wear tights, not blue jeans. Greatest king Francis seen. Louis XIV, you can call me Sun King. All right. So that's, of course, on YouTube. I've got an actual music video there. Ruling absolutely. WAP parody. I should do another Louis XIV verse, you think, here? When it comes to kings, I ain't mediocre. In Western Europe, I'm the power broker. Dutch Republic, I'm going to run you over. With English allies, Treaty of Dover. Charles needed money. He was indebted. All those mistresses ruined his credit. Nobles with swords, I ain't sympathetic. I make new nobles and they ain't genetic. Give me some art. Make it Baroque. Edict of Nantes. I'm a revoke. I want one king, one law, one faith. That's what I said you could quote. Once fought a war over Spanish succession. The Grand Alliance don't like my aggression. They thought they could win, but they couldn't outshine me. Go to Utrecht and now they want to sign me. Woo! All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, just want to make sure we're getting that. Now, the 7 Years' War. That is basically a war that is, that is a war that is fought basically over colonial interest. Okay, so basically, you don't need to know the European campaigns of the 7 Years' War. Okay, you don't need to know the European campaigns of the 7 Years' War. Like Frederick the Great. One of these days, I want to study Frederick the Great as a military commander. Like, evidently, he was like one of the greatest military commanders in European history. I know very little about that because AP Euro focuses on his role as an enlightened absolutist, where he is reforming institutions. He is giving religious toleration and that sort of thing. He's supporting, Voltaire for a time until they had a falling out. So the 7 Years' War, it's basically, you want to understand that the global balance of power, okay, this is a war over colonies. And so where in the United States, U.S. history, we call this the French and Indian War. So this is basically the North American theater is what's most important because Britain basically, and this is part of that global colonial balance of power, Britain takes all of France's colonies as a result of that in North America. Now, that's why France, they get involved in the American Revolution, not because they really care about the American Revolution, but because, they're basically wanting to, get Britain's colonies. So it's like Britain, Britain did not, as far as that goes, Britain did not, go into, I'm going to put Harambe Movie on my Instagram story. Basically, France is like, you took our colonies, we're going to take your colonies. Balance of power, yo. Now, the thing is, France didn't really get a lot out of this, and this is where I'm going to go to causes of the French Revolution. Let's see if I'm coming up on Google without my name. Okay, not yet. So I'm going to be working on that. So with that, causes of the French Revolution, Tom Richey. Okay, let's go with that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, let's see, causes of the French Revolution. So I'm going to get this handout, which is available on my website. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put a direct link here, or you can Google causes of the French Revolution, Tom Richey. So let's go ahead and we think about the 7 Years' War, the war over colonies and the global balance of power. Okay, and so with that, we're going into, let's see, we've got, let's see, so going with that, let's go ahead and note here that the causes of the French Revolution. So we want to understand that, sure, the American Revolution might have done a little something to inspire the French Revolution, but, as far as republicanism and, the Enlightenment and all that, but really the main impact here, and thank you very much, Miss Mullins class, for your support. Proctor Tennis and Micah M. Johnson, Sarah Burgoyne, and Selena Trong. Thank y'all so much. So with this, I have shared this in the chat, and you just go to, Google, Causes of the French Revolution, Tom Richey. It'll take you to this blog post. Now, you can either read it here or you can read it in the handout I've got here. So when we're thinking about the French Revolution and thinking about causation, what are some things that caused the French Revolution? Now, France just did not have a very good war record coming up on, it was almost like practice for the 20th century. They're practicing for World War II here. Now, of course, they lose the 7 Years' War. Now, they do help the Americans, win, but it's kind of what they'd call in military terms a Pyrrhic victory. That France, they got their goal by depriving Britain of its North American colonies, or at least 13 of them, not Canada, but at least part of it. But they ruined their basically they ruined the government's finances over their investment in the American Revolution just for balance of power considerations. And so we see here with the financial crisis, too much money being spent on wars, a lot of luxury at Versailles, which was not Marie Antoinette's fault, but she was often associated with it. The church and the nobility. Remember, those first two estates were exempt from most forms of taxation, including the tile, and then making it difficult for the French government to raise revenue. And then the French government's financial crisis, basically, this was the reason for calling the estates general. Okay, so going from there, and remember, thanks for everybody that's showing Harambe some love. I just think that's great karma for y'all. It's just always good to just to show some respect, to pay your respects there. Y'all press F in the chat for a moment for Harambe. So he's, just seeing us from up there in heaven, and hopefully selecting an easy DBQ topic, SAQ topics that we just happened to cover this morning. So thank you so much, Rich, Rich Biorshia, whatever. All right, Jesse, and everybody else. We've got Jesse lives in space. Hopefully you come down here for a little bit to take your exam. And let's see, Anastasia. Thank you so much, Anastasia Gonzalez. So poverty among the lower classes, the rise of the bourgeoisie. Now, who are the bourgeoisie? Now, the bourgeoisie are what I refer to as the professional class. This is basically, these are people who don't work with their hands, that they need an education. Okay, so as far as that goes, they don't work with their hands, and they are, they don't work with their hands, and they are, they're people who have an education. People like, doctors, doctors and physicians are the same thing. Merchants, professors and teachers are bourgeois. Also, attorneys are bourgeois. Okay, and so as far as that goes, the rise of the bourgeoisie, who was they were getting a good bit of economic clout, but they weren't getting political clout to go with it. Now, note the influence of Enlightenment philosophy. You could go into Locke, Voltaire, Montesquieu, or Rousseau, any of them having influence. Locke on the idea of natural rights. Now, Locke and Voltaire and Montesquieu, a lot more influential in the French Revolution's liberal phase. Whereas, Rousseau is going to have a lot of influence, his philosophy, during the radical phase of the revolution, when it gets to be more about implementing the general will than it is about natural rights. Now, I've got a comparison of Locke and Hobbes on my YouTube channel. I've also got a comparison of Locke and Rousseau, that when we're looking at social contract philosophy. John Locke said the purpose of government is to protect your rights, your individual rights of life, liberty, and property, and your right to stay hydrated, right? Oh my goodness, I love me some water. So with that, it's great for a beverage that doesn't have any caffeine in it. And so with that, Rousseau says the reason for the social contract is that the government policies reflect the general will of the people. Okay, so as far as that goes, that is something to note here. Now, also the ineptitude of Louis XVI. Okay, any of these could go into causal factors for the French, for the French Revolution. So remember that causation, something that is very important here. So with that, now remember that what's going to be happening here is that, y'all are all, I believe, taking the exam at the same time. 12 o'clock, basically 12 o'clock Eastern, that's when everybody is going to be taking this exam. Okay, so 12 o'clock Eastern. So that's something that is important there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not doing a broadcast with Marco Learning today, but I am going to be doing some stuff with Marco Learning later on. Actually, I'm going to be doing an AP government broadcast with them later this evening. I think that Marco Learning is a great channel for y'all to follow. And because I think that, and all it is the push of the button, I'm going to say that, for every 100, subscribers at Marco Learning, I can do a rap. And also, if you're not subscribed to this channel, shame on you. Okay, so hopefully y'all are subscribed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. But right now, Marco Learning is at 19.2 subscribers. I'm glad to do the Metternich rap when we get to 19.3. Okay, so Metternich, Congress of Vienna, and actually with the amount of people we've got here, how about 19 point? Well, I already said 19.3. But then again, Machiavelli, check this out, okay? Machiavelli said that it's okay to break your word. That's not in line with like Christian teaching or good morals, but this is a teachable moment, okay? Teachable moment that I'm going to go ahead and break my word because Machiavelli said sometimes that's effective. So in order to encourage more people to subscribe to Marco Learning's channel, I am going to say 19.4. Now, I am modeling here. I'm not just being a no good liar, but I'm modeling here Machiavelli, who said, now, of course, this is something we think about secularism. Secularism is that society functions independently of religious authority. Okay, so in a secular society, it doesn't mean that people aren't religious. Okay, you can be religious and be secular. But the thing about being religious and being secular is if you're secular, your religion is a part of your individual identity. Where you don't, it's just like, look, this is a part of what I do. I don't seek to put it on anybody. I don't want the government to have anything to do with it. I don't want to be told what to do, but you can be both secular and religious. To be secular is not to be anti-religious, okay? So that's the thing, that secularism just means there's an independence from religion, whereas the Renaissance is kind of the beginning of secularism in Europe. Now, note, if you're a heretic, you're still going to burn at the stake in Renaissance Italy. Galileo had to recant, because the church authorities were still very influential at the time. So we want to think about that we see an increasing amount of secularism, but secularism is not inherently anti-religious. Now, the social contract, remember, we talk about social contract theory, we're comparing it to the divine right of kings. Divine right of kings says God creates the government, which rules over the people. God creates the government, which rules over the people. That the government, the king or the queen, the monarch, has the divine right to rule, is placed there by God, okay? Divine right monarchs placed there by God. Now, the social contract is basically that, government is created through a contract. Like, people start off in a state of nature and they make a contract. So that they say that in the state of nature, I have all of my freedom, but no way to protect my freedom. So, Hobbes basically says Hobbes believes in absolute monarchy, but he's not a divine right absolutist. Hobbes says it's not about divine right, y'all. It's about protecting each other from ourselves, okay? So when it comes time to that, Hobbes is saying we need an absolute monarchy. So with this, I've got a video here. Let me go into this here. Human nature and the social contract. I've got a video, but I'm going to go into this real quick, okay? So I'm going to go into this real quick here. Human nature and the social contract. So as far as that goes, your social contract theorists are Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. None of these guys are about divine right. Now, when it comes to human nature, Thomas Hobbes believes that human beings are naturally contentious. Leave us alone, and we're all going to kill each other, okay? Without a strong absolute ruler, we are going to kill each other. And then John Locke, tabula rasa. Okay, basically blank slate. We're like a computer without an operating system that we learn from experience. Remember, John Locke is an empiricist. When we think about the scientific revolution, empiricism and rationalism. Okay, so as far as that goes, empiricism and rationalism. Okay, and so with that, Jean-Jacques Rousseau believes that people are inherently virtuous. Okay, so people are inherently virtuous, and that's going to affect how they think. Now, the thing is, I think, when it comes down to it, most people aren't quite there with Rousseau. I personally think that virtue in people kind of has to be cultivated a bit. Now, Locke, though, is like, look, we can go either way. And so Hobbes, humans are certain to destroy each other in the absence of sovereign authority. Locke says humans are without inherent nature. We're free to define ourselves. Okay. And so then you see Rousseau, humans are compassionate and do not desire to harm each other. Now, that's where, when you get into that they get into this, where Hobbes is going to propose a social contract that says we need a strong absolute ruler, not because of divine right. Okay. So as far as this goes, not because of divine right, but because we need this to not kill each other. And John Locke says we could have a constitutional government, and the purpose of this government is to protect our rights, that we are able to have a government that's limited without giving up our sovereignty. Hobbes says the people are giving up their sovereignty to the monarch who will protect them. Locke says the people, they choose a government, but they can also replace it. Locke believes in the right of revolution. Rousseau, remember, Locke says the government's there based on a contract and to protect your rights. Whereas Rousseau says the government is there to promote the general will. Okay, so all of these guys are social contract theorists, but they all have different reasons for the social contract. Okay, and so with that, which in the United States, our social contract is historically based on John Locke. Now, I've made an argument that in the last 15 months or so, we've seen kind of a trend toward Rousseau's social contract, but I think that a lot of this, like when you look at the controversies over the coronavirus, where people have, arguments about the coronavirus, how to handle that. I think a lot of this, if you understand Locke and Rousseau, you can understand the different philosophies between people who have different viewpoints, because, Locke's social contract, again, it's about your natural rights. Rousseau's social contract is about promoting the general will. Okay, so as far as that goes, oh gosh, yeah. So with that, Nietzsche, y'all want to get into existentialism. I tell you what, I love me some existentialism. So with that, y'all know how to get me going. Okay, so with that, I need to do an existentialist rap sometime. I'm just gonna see like who are the latest people showing us love here. Let's see, Andressi 22 wants to hear an existentialist rap. Oh my goodness, what? Swaggy, A Shorty, JPEGs, OW, and Surratt Designs Company, thank y'all so much. And Marita Vincent and Ashen, thank y'all so much for the love that y'all are showing Harambe. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's something. I wonder if we can get the Harambe movie on Instagram up to like 400 followers. They're at 353 right now. Okay, but let's get them some more followers. All right. So going from there, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to think about this. So existentialism. Now, existentialism starts, this tells you something, okay? I've actually got like multiple existentialist books, like in my, within reach, okay? And so with this, Kierkegaard is really, now he doesn't come up in the course and exam description, but Kierkegaard is really the first existentialist. He wrote a book called Fear and Trembling. And in this book, this is based on basically, Abraham's, according to Christian, Judeo-Christian tradition, the binding of Isaac. Okay, if you're coming from an Islamic tradition, you might put Ishmael there. But as far as that, Kierkegaard is coming from a Judeo-Christian, like a Christian perspective, and he's looking at the binding of Isaac. And he's making a point here that, he says that Abraham's faith, okay, the whole absurdity of like Abraham, who's like basically, look, God told me to bind up my son and offer him as a sacrifice. And so he goes and he binds up his son in the biblical story, and he goes and goes up a mountain to sacrifice his son. And then as he draws the knife, all of a sudden, there is a ram, goat, what, sheep, whatever you want to call it. There's an animal. All of a sudden, there's a sacrificial animal that shows up there. Now, what Kierkegaard argues is that Abraham is like the pinnacle of human existence. Now, why is that? Because by modern standards, Abraham seems kind of cuckoo. But Kierkegaard says Abraham was a man of faith. That when we look at this story of Abraham and Isaac, Abraham embraced what he calls the absurd, okay? Existentialism, it rejects rationality, and it rejects like traditional thinking and rational frameworks, that it embraces the absurd, okay? So the idea of Abraham bringing his son up the mountain, going through everything, drawing the knife, and being ready to do it. But then at the same time, the paradox here is Kierkegaard saying that he was ready to do it, but he also had full faith in God and himself, that everything was going to happen. So Kierkegaard is answering his generation in a way, I wouldn't call him a romantic, but in some ways there are some undertones, because he is basically railing on the rationalism and materialism of his generation, and saying that it's about faith, okay? And it's about faith, and it's about embracing the absurd. Now, Kierkegaard was a Christian existentialist. Nietzsche was not, okay? Nietzsche was not an existential. He was an existentialist, but Nietzsche, was, not a Christian. In fact, Nietzsche, he is more of what some people call him, like a father of like nihilism. Like, don't worry, Donnie, these men are cowards. All right, so as far as that goes, if you get that, great. If you get that, let me know in the chat. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that basically Nietzsche starts questioning everything, okay? Like basically one of his books is called The Antichrist, okay? And the thing is, the Antichrist, this is something that's very scary to people, right? But Nietzsche, it's not about a person, a figure of Antichrist. It's about the idea of anti-Christianity and Christian morality. So the thing is, what we have to put Nietzsche in the context of is like Darwinism and social Darwinism. That when we're thinking about, about Nietzsche in the context here is, when you look at Darwinism, Darwin's going out there and he's like, look, these species compete with each other. Some die out, but the ones who live on get better. They adapt, okay? And the survival of the fittest is like basically how nature works. And so Nietzsche's like, look, in nature, the weak die out and the strong advance themselves. And so Nietzsche says, but then you've got this Christian morality that says the strong should protect the weak. So why is it that we have this unnatural morality? So, in the Antichrist, he calls, he says, like, he compares a Christian to a herd animal, okay? So he says that basically that religion and religious morality, has basically, it has gutted our vitality. And so Nietzsche says that what should we value? We should value strength, okay? And we should not value weakness as something that needs to be protected. And so that's where Nietzsche, he's saying, he calls it a transvaluation of values. And so he is basically saying here, values are subjective. One of his books is called The Genealogy of Morals. The idea that morality is ultimately made up. It's a social construct, that there is no set morality. And so going from there, Nietzsche, now also Nietzsche, one of my favorite quotes from Nietzsche is, what a few of them, one of them, what is done out of love takes place beyond good and evil. That when it comes down to it, like, people do some crazy stuff in the name of love. Now, do you call it good? Do you call it evil? It's just love. It takes place beyond good and evil. Another one, if you stare into the abyss stares back at you. Now, when you're on the multiple choice, think about Nietzsche. If you stare at a multiple choice question and you're having trouble with it and you keep staring at it, that multiple choice question is going to keep staring back at you. And if you keep thinking about it, it's going to mess you up. You know what? If you run into a multiple choice question, you've read it carefully, and you're like, I don't know it, guess whatever answer you picked, your letter of the day, and move on. Okay, move on to the next one. If you stare into the abyss, okay, Emma is staring into the abyss. Okay, so with this, if you stare into the abyss stares back at you. And now here's the thing where you start to get some empowerment from existentialism. And this is where Jean-Paul Sartre, after World War II, shortly after, he gives this lecture, Existentialism is a Humanism. Okay, that's one. Oh, I'd love if somebody took a screenshot here. Okay, so with that, if anybody took a screenshot, like post it or something like that, and I might repost it. Okay, so that's just one of those things. Like, existential is a humanism. One of my favorite, books here. So with that, Tom staring back into the abyss. Okay, so Jean-Paul Sartre, he's like, look, basically existentialism is being criticized by people saying that you don't believe anything. Okay, existentialists don't believe anything. And so with that, because things like somebody mentioned Dada and how like World War I, has this effect that you've got these like young, left-wing folks that are starting to, so as far as which I hesitate to type art, when we think about Dada, it's like, Dada is basically, it is an art form that's coming out that's kind of contemporary World War I, that is in the 1920s, that basically like, they're trying not to make sense. Okay, this doesn't make any sense. Dada, and it's one of those things. It's like, what is this? Okay, and this is one of those like, what is this? It's Dada. Okay, and so as far as that, there is Marcel Duchamp in his alter ego, which he's dressed as a woman. Okay, so he's showing like, he's bending traditional roles and views. Okay, and also here is Duchamp, who made this here, that he entered this into an art exhibit. He took a urinal, he signed it with a, like just R mutt, literally means nothing. But then 1917, I guess he put the right year, so that wasn't nonsense. I don't know why he didn't put a different year, but R mutt, and he turns it on his side and he puts it in this exhibition and calls it Fountain. That is Dada, okay? And this is like one of those things where, when you look at the way that, both the Soviets and the Nazis, tried to strike back, with some of these things like the degenerate art exhibition. Okay, so basically, when the Nazis took power in Germany, they are, as they see it, trying to save art. Okay, so basically, Hitler said that that basically there's what he called degenerate art. These are works that insult German feeling or destroy or confuse natural form or simplicity, reveal an absence of manual adequate, an absence of adequate manual and artistic skill, which you notice that a lot of these Dada works, like it's just the talent element is missing. The Nazis made this degenerate art exhibition where they are basically displaying all of these like modern art forms like Dada and Surrealism and Expressionism. And they're basically putting them into this museum framework where you walk through with the intent of basically criticizing or making fun of this art and saying that this is no talent art, that is confusing people and it's destroying the traditional German spirit. Okay, that's, of course, are they Nazis, Walter? Now, as far as that goes, Otto Dix, his war cripples, okay? So his war, not cripplies, but war cripples, okay? So Otto Dix and his war cripples. Otto Dix was an expressionist artist, and so you see things like this, which the thing is, this is called degenerate art or whatever. So this is something when you look at Otto Dix's war cripples. One of the things here is that a photo of a war cripple cannot really capture what Dix has captured here. And this is the thing that, although, I mean, there's certainly the 1920s produced their share of like no talent art and nonsense art, but this expressionist piece here that, Otto Dix, like when we look at, the Weimar Republic, okay? When we're looking at the Weimar Republic, what we're going to see here is you can see you can take a photo, and this is another thing about modern art. You can take a photo and you can capture something here, but you can't really capture the feeling in a photo. And I'm trying, yeah, so here is a photograph of a disabled war veteran, who's, what you think about in the United States today and in Europe, somebody's a war veteran, they're disabled, they're going to get a check. Now, Germany was in such a bad place that this disabled war veteran, he's having to, sit there and he's having to beg for alms. This is a man who fought for his country. Now, I can take the picture, but I can't see in the photo how this guy feels on the inside. And so the thing is, how must it feel to have served your country and lost a leg and then be like, just, begging for alms? And this, this kind of art that you can see like how degrading this is. And, the way that these veterans are being treated and the alienation that they feel. And this is something that, again, like, the 20th century, you see this revolution in art, but some of it is really like, this is expressing something, and it's expressing like the feelings that they must have. Okay. Now, so with that, that's just something to kind of keep in mind there. The Nazis, tried to restore traditional art forms. Now, there's also what's called socialist realism. That is something that was popular in the Soviet Union that had some more traditional elements there. So as far as that goes, let's see if we got Marco learning up to 19.4. All right, did we get there? We're still at 19.3. So, when we've got 19.4, we will get the Metternich wrap out there, okay? So as far as that goes, so going from there, can we go over okay, so Michelle, on Cold War, I did some Cold War stuff last night, at the broadcast, so I'm kind of Cold Warred out. But I will go ahead and share my Unit 9 notes. Okay, so let me go ahead, Unit 9 review. I'm going to go ahead and share this in the chats that I've got some tutoring notes that could be helpful to you as you're doing some last minute review. So I'm going to go ahead and share those in the chats that I've got some notes here. So as far as that goes, we're going to put this in the YouTube chat and the Crowdcast chat. So going from there, let's go ahead and, so with that, I've got basically in there a bunch of notes from Unit 9. Now, the other thing, and as I was talking about existentialism, Jean-Paul Sartre and existentialism is humanism. He's like, look, you say that we don't believe anything, we don't advocate for anything. And he says, sure, existentialists as a group don't, but existentialism actually gives you complete freedom, okay? Complete freedom. So with that, existentialism gives you complete freedom to make your own choices. So he says, for example, and you have to consider something like this, that during World War II, when France was occupied by the Nazis, or the Nazis, Walter? So you've got here, France is occupied by the Nazis, and, somebody's got a dilemma. He's taking care of his mother, and he's asking Professor Sartre, his professor of philosophy, do I collaborate with the Nazis and protect my mother? Or do I join the resistance and endanger my mother? And Sartre says, you have to make that choice. I can't make that choice for you. You have been abandoned, okay? And there is no moral framework for you here, okay? You have been abandoned, and you have to make it up as you go along. Now, there is so much fear in that. but there is also freedom. What Sartre wrote here, actually, tweeted that, I think, in the middle of the night last night. Sometimes I'm thinking about Sartre in the middle of the night. And, Sartre wrote that we are condemned to be free, that basically you have to accept that you are free. You have to accept that you are abandoned and you live your own life. And that is freaking liberating. Now, Sartre and his, kind of lifelong partner, Simone de Beauvoir, when we look at the index of prohibited books. Now, somebody asked about the Council of Trent and Vatican II. The Council of Trent and Vatican II, I've been over the Council of Trent already. Now, remember, marcolearning.com/AP Euro, great source of topic-specific study guides on this page. That you can go to the page on the Catholic Reformation. You can see what we were talking about earlier on the Council of Trent. While you're there, remember Marco Learning has study guides and practice tests, free downloads, not only for this subject, but for plenty of other subjects as well. Okay, so you've got other things like human geography, U.S. government, college admissions, all that kind of stuff. So lots of resources here, but I would start first at marcolearning.com/AP Euro. So with that, the Council of Trent and Vatican II were both reforming councils, one during the Counter-Reformation and one in the early, or in the mid-20th century. So what we're going to note here is the index of prohibited books. Now, that's something that Vatican II, the Catholic Church, is going to say, we've outgrown this, okay? So as far as that goes, that the Catholic Church is going to say we're no longer. So note here that it was discontinued in 1966. So in 1966, the Catholic Church said that our index of prohibited books, the Index Liborum Prohibitorum, Index Liborum Prohibitorum, to be all humanistic in Latin, right? It's as old as the printing press. It's almost as old as the printing press, but the Catholic Church says we will no longer keep this list of books that Catholics are not allowed to read. Now, we've got a great who's who of AP Euro: Thomas Hobbes, Blaise Pascal, John Calvin, Rene Descartes, Francis Bacon, a lot of people who are in the CED in some way or another, the course and exam description. John Locke, okay, Montesquieu, The Spirit of the Laws. Don't y'all read about government? Voltaire, gosh, they didn't ban all his works, but banned over 40 of them. Dennis Diderot, I mean, so many people as co-editor on the encyclopedia. The Catholic Church is like, nope. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, okay? So we see here that, all of these people that are familiar to us. So going from there, I think we're probably now, did Marx not, let's see, did they not ban? So some authors were never put on the index. Okay, so Karl Marx and Charles Darwin, which the Catholic Church has made its peace with evolution. But interesting here that Marx was not, not everybody was added to the list. Okay, and so from there, yeah, so works that were included but later removed. I have no idea why these books were removed. I have no idea. Okay, like the Marquis de Sade, I don't know who decided, let's take his books off of there, but these books are awful, from a religious perspective, they're oh my, I don't know how that happened, but somebody you know what, let's take these books off the list. I don't know. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, note here that after World War II, Jean-Paul Sartre, all works, okay? The Catholic Church, which, Sartre said, he was an atheist, but he was an existential atheist. He wasn't I can prove that there's not a God. He said, God's not relevant to me. And that was his form of existentialism. Now, remember, there are also Christian forms of existentialism, where you look at existentialism through the lens of your interpretation of Christianity, and I'm sure that there's, to an extent, I think any religion can be interpreted through an existentialist lens, to an extent. And so with that, note here that the last author was Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex. And we want to note between first wave feminism and second wave feminism, okay? So that's something that first wave feminism is the suffragettes, women's suffrage movement. Emmeline Pankhurst, okay? Now, E-M-M-E, but if you misspell, it's not a big deal. Emmeline Pankhurst, she's a great person to remember when we're talking about women's suffrage, and that is first wave feminism, political rights. And then second wave feminism, it's like the right to vote did not give women equal rights as far as society and economics. Simone de Beauvoir, who was actually she was a professor of philosophy. She was a famous author, but at the same time, she was not, she felt like, look, that, this is a time when you didn't have even like gender neutral language and stuff like that, where, basically the default would all, if you look at books published before the 1960s, the default pronoun is always he. Think about, if you're in the Clase de Espanol, it's like basically a group of girls is ellos, a group of guys is ellos, and a mixed group of guys and girls is ellos, okay? That basically there could be one guy in the group, and in these languages, in English, it's not that way. English is a language actually that's built around privacy. It's kind of like, if you think about, hey, I'm having dinner with my friend tonight. English language, privacy. If you want to know, guy friend or girlfriend, you have to ask. Whereas if you think about like French or Italian or Spanish or Portuguese or Romanian, these Romance languages, you'll know, like when somebody says, I'm going to go have dinner with my friend, whether, it's same in Russian, the gender of that friend. And so with this, now note Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir are buried, they're buried next to each other. And so we see here, is it the same grave? I don't know exactly what's going on there, but we see here that, existentialists still go and like leave things at their graves. So Simone de Beauvoir said, look, women have political rights, but they're still seen as other, okay? And she wrote this book called The Second Sex. And this was like Simone de Beauvoir is the last author. So the last author put on the Index of Prohibited Books is a woman. And what she does here is she is kind of inaugurating this second wave feminism and coming at it. Now, while Mary Wollstonecraft is a liberal feminist, there are also socialist feminists like Flora Tristan. But, we see here Simone de Beauvoir, this is existential feminism. And so with this is, when we're looking at this, she says that women are seen in society as other. Okay, that basically the default human being is always seen as a man, and a woman is seen as other. Okay, and so with that, ladies and gentlemen, going to give a shout out to Miss Lawrence's class over there in Virginia Beach. Hopefully y'all do so great on your exams, and of course, Goot and all of those other folks there. Davis, anybody I'm forgetting. Some of y'all who go by alias, your teacher goes by an alias online or something, and I may forget the specifics there, but I remember in spirit. So with that, so we've got Kellam and Bayview and the Ocean Lakes, all of these great high schools in the Virginia Beach area. I'm hoping that Corona slows down enough that by next year I'm doing live events again. So I've really missed that during the last couple exam seasons, doing live events. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's see, Marco Learning has a great YouTube channel, lots of good stuff coming out on there. We're still at 19.3, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get them up to 19.4. So with that, because I want to rap, I'm dying to rap, but I've got to be Machiavellian here, right? So I'm showing y'all how Machiavellianism works. So with that, we'll note here. So we've answered that one. Renaissance and, as far as that goes, Renaissance and Enlightenment thinkers. Now, remember, Renaissance, we're looking at, I divide Renaissance humanists into like three categories: the men of letters, the civic humanist, these are all Italian, and then the northern humanist. Okay, so with that, the men of letters, your standard like nerd humanists, these are like Petrarch and Pico della Mirandola are two of them that I emphasize there. Petrarch, of course, the father of humanism. And then so as far as that goes, that he's the father of humanism. Pico della Mirandola, he is, a classicist. He's taking elements of Christianity, Greek philosophy, Islamic philosophy. He's putting in medieval philosophy, Jewish philosophy, putting them all together. Okay. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is something that, you know, Pico della Mirandola and Petrarch, my favorites for, you know, my go-tos for the, you know, what do you call it? The men of letters. And then going from there, you know, I would go to civic humanism. That's Machiavelli and Castiglione, still Italian Renaissance. Machiavelli and Castiglione. And so these are basically writers showing you how to be a better political leader. Okay, so Machiavelli in The Prince, How to Rule. Castiglione, the Book of the Courtier, how to be a respectable gentleman that has the ear of a, you know, of a ruler. Now, then the Northern Renaissance, or what they call in the CED Christian humanism, Erasmus and Thomas More, focusing on, focusing on social reform from a more Christian perspective. Okay, so with that, that's something that that we want to note there. Now, for the Enlightenment, now I didn't do last night. I didn't do the Napoleon song. Some of y'all are going to start checking in, and once you are y'all locked, or are you on lockdown as soon as you check in? Is your computer locked down? Y'all let me know. All right. The year was 1812, and the French emperor said that Russia couldn't trade with the British anymore. With a military genius leading 500,000 men, the Grand Army can't do anything but anything. Let's see. Oops. Grand Army can't do anything but win. Napoleon, the French Revolution brought you to your throne. The continental system, trade with Britain must cease. It's the only way that Europe will ever know peace. Will we ever know peace? Coming back from Russia, not as many as before. The Grand Army ain't looking grand anymore. Watch Moscow burn with the fires of hell, and our retreat, it didn't go so well. Napoleon, you won it for Vino, but you couldn't win the war. Time to raise a new army with a esprit de corps, cause the Sixth Coalition's coming back for more. Yeah, they're coming back for more. Battle of the Nations lost to Europe's armies, just like Leonidas lost to Persia at Thermopylae. So fell to Persia at Thermopylae. He wanted to keep fighting, but then after a debate, the generals all decided it was time to abdicate. Napoleon, they exiled you to Elba, but you were escape prone. Let's see, for 100 days he was back on, so Napoleon, they exiled you to Elba, but he was escape prone. Let's see, for 100 days he was back on the throne, but Wellington defeated him and now he's gone. And now he's gone. Looking at the stars and they're shining so bright. The view from St. Helena so pretty at night. In the South Atlantic, something doesn't feel right. Not a war, not a battle, not a triumph in sight. The Brit, and the British governor doesn't treat me very nice. Stomach ulcer, loneliness, I'm in such strife. Just 6 more years till the end of my life. Y'all press F to pay respects, and y'all be sure to show Mr. Good some love on Twitch. All right, so with that, y'all make sure to show him some love on Twitch. Press F to pay respects for Napoleon, also for Harambe, ladies and gentlemen. And so with that, yes, you're right about Louis Blanc, national workshops. Socialism, but not Marxism. All right. In 1840, they brought you home, built an unmarked tomb beneath a classical dome. Now guarded by a dozen angels made of stone, and on the 17th of June, you were not alone. Y'all sing along with me. Napoleon, Napoleon, the French Revolution brought you to your throne. Those rumors about your height, they were overblown. Made your mark on history, so you'll never be gone. Now you'll never be gone. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, yeah, I didn't say I couldn't play guitar. But let's see if we've got that Metternich rap coming, because we had Napoleon. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will. Oh, we're still at 19.3. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to see that thing get to 19.4. I'm going to put that in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. MarcoLearning, youtube.com/MarcoLearning. Let me just go ahead and put that in the chat, because we're about to go home. So we want to make sure that that we get some rapping here. And in this case, I'm going, so I can selectively keep my word or not. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll keep checking. Also, I think it's kind of getting into let's think about here. Also, it's about time to get like some shout outs for your classes, because I'm going to be wrapping this up in about 10 minutes, because a lot of people are going to be doing their thing there. Okay, and so going from that, thank you, PogChamp Richey. All right, you're very welcome. So with that, now, if y'all want to write PogChamp or something like that on your DBQ, that might be fun. It's just as a fun thing. Now, you'll notice in the, what I did here is that, I've got my, and this is this is available on a Crowdcast somewhere, but let's see. So what I did here is I've got a DBQ like setup and sample for the 2021. Now, note here that I've got some things that I can share with y'all. I would encourage you on the DBQ, annotate your documents. If you've got a printer, what I would encourage you to do here is let's see, I don't know where I've got that, let's see, Unit 9 review, setup and sample. Okay, so I just need to run in here, 2021 AP Euro DBQ setup. Okay, so AP Euro DBQ setup. And so with that, let's see, loading. Come on now. Well, wait, actually, that's not the one that I wanted to do there. Okay, so this is digital DBQ. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so the digital DBQ annotation guide. Okay, this is just kind of a makeshift guide that I came up with here. And so with that, as we're going through here, this is something I was setting up with a, with a tutoring client. And so basically for every one of these documents, make some notes. What I'm giving you here is just a structure and a format to make notes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that there, and let's go ahead and put that into the YouTube chat as well. That's something we want to make sure that is available to y'all. So with that, going through, what's a brief summary? Now, this is for your records. This can be shorthanded. So kind of like I did here. First when I was like, okay, British judge rules in favor of a poor man in India whose property was allegedly destroyed by a British soldier. So basically noting all subjects are entitled to the protection of property. Now, is this liberalism? So basically, it was about figuring out whether British rule in India was primarily influenced by liberalism. And so going from there, as we're looking at this, that I would go ahead and note the argument. Okay, yes. Why? Protection of property. Now, remember, define your terms. DYT, some teachers say, define your terms. Shout out to Miss Keller's students in Colorado if they're watching. And so with that, you need to define liberalism. It can be anything that's historically defensible, but remember that Americans, a lot of times, they have different views about what liberalism is compared to Europeans. So my definition here, when I'm going through you need to know what you're looking for if you're going to be able to make an argument. So I said economic freedom. civil liberties, protection of property. So here I see protection of property. Now then I see, that the British soldiers are getting killed there in wars of conquest. No, conquest is not liberal, okay? And, then I've got my POV, hit, cap, or any outside evidence that might come up. What does this make me think of that's beyond this document? So basically, summary of the document. Now, use or strike, those of you going for all 7 points, which you shouldn't be doing unless you're trying to get a 5. But if you're trying to get a 5, you're trying to get all the points, use all the documents. If you're thinking you know what, I'm fine with getting a 4 or 5 on this DBQ, you can do that with only 4 documents. So as far as that goes, there are most of you, I would wager to say that you're going to be better off using 4 documents and really getting deeper into them, okay, than you would be trying to use all 7 and try to do a juggling act. But basically in here, anything that I'm thinking about outside the documents, that I'm going to note that. Okay, so I'm going to note these things here. And so this is something, and then I'm basically ready to put this together. Okay, so what I did here for my thesis is noting 2 ways in which it was not liberal. So I'm noting here unequal treatment of Indians by the British and conquest, and then high taxes and economic meddling. I looked at document 3. I was like, this guy sounds like a mercantilist. This is mercantilism, not economic liberalism. And then finally, I've got my counter argument, the protection of property. And so with this, what we're going to note here is my qualifier or counter argument, and each of these represents a paragraph. So basically, British imperial, and this is actually a 3-sentence thesis. I rarely do a 3-sentence thesis, but in this case I did. As long as the sentences are together and they're obviously making a thesis statement. Okay, so British imperial rule in India in the 19th century was not primarily influenced by liberalism, because India was taken by conquest and the British did not treat their Indian subjects equally. Now, this would actually be a sufficient thesis, okay, but I'm even going to go further here. So the first sentence there would actually get the thesis point, okay? And so going from there, I'm just going to get deeper and deeper, like one of those memes where, they've got the brain, and the brain just gets more wild as it goes. So this is something here that I'm going to, let's note here, let me just go ahead and put that text white so it sticks out, okay? So as far as that goes, we see here, additionally, I'm going to note there, additionally, they imposed high taxes and tried to manipulate the Indian economy on a mercantilist model to serve British interest, which goes against economic liberalism. Now it's bam, I'm going to go with a third argument. However, now remember your counter argument, however, and remember, I don't typically recommend a 3-sentence thesis. It's just what I did here. But it's just as long as the sentences appear together in the opening paragraph or in the closing paragraph, that's where the thesis has to be. So, however, the British government did make an effort to protect property rights and respect the religious beliefs of their indigenous subjects. Okay. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, Romulus Euro, thank y'all. It's kind of late to download that now, but I'm just doing this as a thank you. Now, remember, Romulus also has an APUSH review app. So those of you taking APUSH, remember, I'm going to be here for you next year. If you're taking APUSH or AP Gov, marcolearning will be here. Let's see how far we got here. And I bet you I'm going to find that magic number there. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so rapping, shout outs, all of that. Okay. What up, Europeans? It's the ladies' pick. Austrian Prince Clemens von Metternich, aristocracy's savior. I'm the man of the hour. Gonna carefully restore Europe's balance of power. Eating nationalists for breakfast, liberals for my dinner. Gotta be conservative if you want to be a winner. I'm the coach man of Europe, so you better hold your horses, because all the great powers are about to join forces. Napoleon thought he was too big for Elba, so we put him on a boat straight to St. Helena. Threatened European peace, so we set him adrift. Shake the French Revolution off like Taylor Swift. Come on, Talleyrand, have a seat at the table, because Europe needs a France that is strong and stable. I don't need to punish France. I just want to keep order and restore the old 1791 borders. The liberals have ideas that they want to express, but I shut their mouths up when I censor the press. Stability between and within European states is the goal of this order that I'm trying to create. So join me in Vienna, where a Congress is in session. Together we can stop the revolution from progressing. This conservative order, no, it ain't gonna fall, because I build coalitions like Trump builds walls. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's how a conservative lays it down. All right. So, last minute shout outs. Let's go ahead and check in the chat. And see what's going on there. Okay, so some last minute shout outs. Now, remember, thank you everybody who contributed super chats. So great. Thank you so much, Sophia. Says I'm spitting bars over here. Mr. Oscar Lloyd's class from Marcus. Okay, so good luck on AP exams, everyone. Okay, so bro, sheesh. With this, let's see, we got 2 minutes, okay? The exam is always curved, by the way. It's not graded in absolute terms. Chloe, good luck on your exams. As far as that goes, one day I'm going to get in there. Layla, I'm hoping that next year you're going to see more for, if you're taking a push or something like that, I'll get that out there. But all of my unpublished notes, I just kind of do that. Ina is the college board, ha ha ha, WTF, she says. Okay. And Ina is desperate. And she says, though, but she is the college board. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Jessica, good luck on your exam. That's all I'm going to say there. So as far as that goes, Ina's looking for someone to do her exam, whether not a good idea to take her up on that. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all, so much for your support. Let me go back. So Mr. Tupka's class represent Miss Herzl's, okay, Theodore Herzl, the father of Zionism. Which was a form of nationalism. Remember to put it in that context, okay? So Zionism is a form of Jewish nationalism that came of age in the late 19th century, in the 1890s with the context of the Dreyfus affair. So as far as that goes, thank y'all so much. Ashley, good luck on your exam. And Guillermo, it's always a pleasure, sir. And with that, hey, y'all are the best. Y'all are the best. Y'all are about to do awesome. And we are going to, it's going to be a great time. And remember, this is almost over, and I am, looking through that. So let's see, Stortle's class and McDevitt, Mr. Horowitz at Cox High School. Okay, so we've got, Mr. Horowitz, y'all got that, and Mr. Schock, Miss Friedig, and Mr. Wengel. Okay, thank y'all so much. PogChamp, shout out to McDevitt class. Okay, and that's one thing in my DDQ on British India. I said Queen Victoria entered the chat like a PogChamp and declared, religious toleration in India. I was kind of proud of myself for that. All right, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, shout out to Hart, Lankford. Thank you so much. Goodbye, Law. Thank y'all so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of y'all in APUSH and AP Government. It has been a wonderful journey. Thank you, Miss Hendrix's class, for your support, and Miss Deslaurier, so thank y'all again so much. And Coach Barr, and check that IG, Karen says. All right, Karen, leave a comment and I'll check it, on a recent post or something like that. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, y'all, y'all keep that in mind. And so again, it has been a wonderful test year, and well, it hadn't been a wonderful year, but you know what? I think it's been a wonderful test season. So we're going to call it that. And thank y'all so much. And Miss DeVoe's class, thank you so much for your support. It's always a pleasure, everyone.